Welcome to Backstage with Becca B, with special guest Charlie Franklin. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca B. On this episode, he made his Broadway debut as a swing in Bridges of Madison County. He was in the ensemble of Book of Mormon, and is currently portraying Roger Davies in Tina, the Tina Turner musical on Broadway. Please welcome Charlie Franklin.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Of course, thank you for joining me on this.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited too. First of all, I have to say I saw Tina in October and it was, oh my God, amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely a pretty special show.
I planned
Those girls are.
Yeah. I was like,
who did you see play Tina?
Adrian before she left.
Oh, you saw Adrian. Yeah.
Yeah. I was
pretty
like,
spectacular.
I've heard so many good things about her that I need to see her in the before she leaves. So I planned a trip out and just went to a bunch of Broadway shows during that time.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's the way to do it for sure. Plan the trip, see them all. Adrian. Listen, every girl that has done it since is just as spectacular, but it's just cool to see somebody make that out of obviously Tina Turner is amazing, but just what Adrian did with that role is crazy. And whatever the idea that she could do that many times a week is still mind-boggling to me.
I mean, anyone who can perform in that show, in that role that many times a week, it just blows my mind.
It's crazy.
Blows my mind. More than once a week, I would just fall over halfway through the show.
Oh yeah, easy.
From being so tired.
I've definitely done that too.
Doing all the dancing.
Not as Tina.
Oh my goodness. So, how have you been? We've now been back, the theater world has kind of been back for going on maybe 8 months. I'm not good at math, but it was a weird time before.
No, that's probably about right. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's still not anywhere near normal, I guess. But what is normal for a theater person anyway? Always constantly adjusting to something or other. It's been it's definitely been a small change, but it's just good to be back.
Yeah. So how did you deal with that time away from the theater? Because I know it was difficult for theater performers and as well as the audience members who go see the shows.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's always difficult to not have something happening. And as it's already such an unstable career. So the idea that all of it is gone for a year and a half, aside from very, very select film and TV stuff or online concerts, it's just tough to navigate that situation because, actors are constantly in this low of just there's got to be another thing happening. There's got to be, because shows rarely last too long, and fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything about Tina lasting for a very long time. But it was, I guess the nice thing was in my case, which I know a lot of people didn't have this, was knowing that when things kind of got a little bit better, I had something waiting for me on the other side, which was very nice. And I did feel a little bit safer than a lot of people during the pandemic, because I knew that after a month I would go back to a job, and then I knew after 6 months I'd go back to a job, and then it turned into a year and a half. But I always knew that there was the job at the end of that. So it was a little bit less scary for me. But then going back into the job and thinking, okay, now that we're here on this, there's a couple things that, I didn't think about going back in, which was being on stage in front of people again and going, okay, wow, this is at its equal parts amazing and terrifying, because you were cooped up away from everybody for a year and a half. And then you get on stage in front of 1,400 seats, not all full at this point because people are still afraid. Which brings me to my other thing, which is, are people going to show up? Do people feel safe enough to go back to the theater? And it's been Good. I mean, it's been great. Obviously, there's no, if there's one person out there, we're happy. It's not happening, thank God. But it is just, yeah, we're all working through it. But it was, I will say, there were many things about that time off that was very nice, because like I said, as an actor, you're always thinking, okay, there's got to be the next thing, and knowing that there is nothing, you have to relax and stay in one spot for a sec. It's like, okay, wow, that fresh air, that I never have, that like ease and just like relaxation is something that I didn't take for granted. And I spent a lot of time with my family, and a lot of time with Delaney, who I know you interviewed on here, and we got engaged over the pandemic, so that was obviously a plus.
I mean, you all
So
got to spend a bunch of time together during that time.
oh
So
yeah, oh, the whole time,
yeah,
because we, right off the bat in March of 2020, we got COVID, right? The show's closed and we had COVID. So that was fun. So, we were quarantined together. And then after that, it was like, all right, now we're just quarantined together till this ends. And that was
and
fun.
you're like, hopefully it ends in April. Optimism.
Yeah, I know. We were supposed to go back like right after Easter, and then nope.
I was so
Not
optimistic.
even the following Easter.
I was so optimistic, and then July hit, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna sit back and relax, and
yeah,
whatever happens,
there's
happens,
nothing
I
else
guess.
you can do. Yeah, and there's lots of things that are great about that time off, because you get to work on things that you might not have had the time for. I read a book that I put off reading when I was in school, and it was an acting book that I pretended to read, like the terrible student that I was for some of it. And I was like, man, this book is so great. I should have read this back in school. And it's something I might not have picked up ever again until I had that break. So hey.
Yes. I mean, I feel especially theater people push themselves and like never stop working. So I've heard like the time off was kind of like, in a way, a silver lining.
Oh, for sure. It definitely had silver linings. Yeah.
Yes.
Would I do it again?
So,
No, probably not. Not unless I had to, but
no. Too much time away from the theater and away from the live
much.
audiences. So, have you always known you wanted to be a theater performer? When did you start? When did your love for theater develop?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family of artists, which is cool. I mean, my dad is an accountant, so there's that. But my mom has her master's in opera, and she is a voice teacher. And so growing up, I heard voice lessons happening in my house every day. I think she started teaching when I was probably 6 or 7, maybe a little bit older. And I didn't really understand theater, I think, until well after I had already done a couple shows, which would show if you saw videos of me performing as a young kid. But I I think by the time I got into it, people would start asking me what I wanted to do, and I didn't have an answer, but I think I knew deep down that that was the direction I was heading in. And I if you asked me if I liked to do theater, I would have said no. And then anytime I did a show, I had the best time ever. And it just was something I did. And then it turned into, oh, I guess I'm gonna start looking at colleges for that, because I do it all the time. That is what I do. That's, there's nothing else that I do. So it was just something that kind of fell into my lap, I guess, because it was just there all the time. My siblings were all doing shows. My mom was constantly, teaching kids, singing all these songs. I knew every lyric to every song because they were always singing it in my living room. So it just was there, and I'm so glad, obviously, that it happened. It's not like I was ever forced into doing it, but I definitely was forced into doing auditions as a kid. My mom thought that would be good for me, and I still, to this day, I absolutely hate doing it, and I wish I had my mom here to force me to do them.
I mean, I don't blame you. I feel like auditions are like, it's kind of like a job interview. It's like the most nerve-wracking thing in the world
Oh yeah. It's
because
a
you,
job interview where you don't hear anything after if you don't get it. I
yeah,
think it's probably the only type of job interview where they're like, thanks, goodbye. And then that you're like, I think I just have to forget about that forever
it,
until you get
yeah.
a call either saying you got it or a lucky call saying, hey, you didn't get it, which is very rare in this business too.
I mean, why is it that people have stopped like the hey, so you didn't get it call or
Yeah,
email?
I know it doesn't seem fair, but hey, I think it hopefully is something that will change or is changing. And if not, it's something that I think a lot of us have gotten used to. Just you leave the audition, you take your audition sides, you throw them in recycling, and you're done. And then if you get the call, you're like, oh wow, cool. Pull them back out of the recycling or
Oh,
print them again. You're just like I had already let go of that because that's the only way you can healthily move on in this career.
yes.
If you kind of linger on something, then it just eats away at your soul. So
Yeah.
eh,
You can't overthink it, which is so
never.
easy to do. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, oh yeah, I'm sure every actor will tell you that they're the king or queen of overthinking, and it's not it's not a great thing, but it's hard not to.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard not to. We're all human. So,
There you go,
what
at the
was
root
the
of it all.
first show that you were ever in where you were like, okay, so this is kind of a career? Like being on stage and acting and singing is kind of a career.
Let me think. So I definitely did a lot of shows as a kid. I mean, I definitely did a lot of shows and had the best time and loved all my friends doing the shows with me and had it was just fun. It felt great, but I think probably I did a production of Les Mis in high school
Ooh.
where I played Marius, and I had seen Les Mis on Broadway when I was a kid, and I hated it. I fell asleep
Okay.
right at the beginning. I woke up partway through, and I was like, "Can we go home?" And then when started learning it in high school and doing it, I was like, "Oh, I could definitely get used to this feeling for the rest of my life." I think it wasn't just about fun at that point. It was about finding new things about this character and really delving into you know the empathy and just the journey that he's on. And it was that's probably the one that kind of made me go, okay, yeah, this is good stuff.
It,
And
it's
I'm
a,
glad that I ended up liking Les Mis because it is very good.
oh my goodness, yes. I mean, as a kid, I can see kids like kids going, "What is this?" Because especially this last touring production, it was like so the stage was so dark, everything was so dark about it.
Yeah,
And it's not a very happy show.
no, it's literally called The Miserables.
So, but it has very pretty music and
Oh
oh my god, it's just iconic in my
yeah,
opinion. Just
yeah,
iconic. So I read that you got your role in your first Broadway show when you were a senior in college
I did.
in Bridges of Madison County.
That's
And
right.
what was the audition process like? How did you get the audition? What was it like? Like what convinced you to go in an audition while still in college?
Yeah. Well, I went to Pace, which is downtown in Manhattan. So I already had that kind of um, leg up, being in school in the city. And we had kind of had this rule at Pace where if you felt ready enough to go in for something, and the program director thought that you were ready enough and wouldn't go in there and kind of ruin your chances of ever getting in front of that casting director again, then you could go in. And I had had an agent through college that I had gotten at the end of high school. She saw me in a show and just was like, "Hey, I'd love to represent you." And it was very loose, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." Just to get anything that I could. Um, and my mom had actually seen Bridges at Williamstown the summer before it was supposed to come to Broadway, and she loved it. She loves Jason R. Brown, and uh, she had told me, hey, you got to go in for this. This is a really good role for you. And so I emailed my agent and I said, hey, I would love to be seen for this, when it comes to Broadway, if they're going to cast anybody else. And the next thing I knew, I had an audition for it, and I went in, and I had met Jason before, because my mom, as a voice teacher, she had brought him up to do workshops with her students. And, it was just very loose. It wasn't like we were best buds or anything, but he was like, hey, I know your mom. And I was like, yep, I know. I don't know if that helped or if it was just like, I recognize this kid. I don't know. But I had a couple of auditions, and they just kept saying, the casting director would come out and say, hey, that was really great. They want to see you again. And it was down to me and somebody else. And I did my final callback. Oh, I cracked so bad too. I remember I was singing something and it just didn't come out right. And at the end of the song, I just stop and I'm like, and Jason looks at me and he goes, well, you'll be able to sing that not at 10 a.m., right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, okay, good. And then at probably an hour later, I got back to school and I got a call from my agent saying that I got it. And I was the swing. And it was surreal. I was on my way to class, and I had to go to class. It was like all I wanted to do was go and like celebrate.
Yeah.
But instead I went and took a class because I was still in school. And I wasn't taking all that much my senior year because I had gotten most of it out of the way. So it was really easy to work around. I did, however, have a class at 9 a.m. on Mondays, which was our day off. So I'd be at the theater all week. And then on Monday morning for my day off, I'd wake up at 8 and I'd go to my class. And it was an experience. It was probably really good for me. I would never do it again at this point. Days off are very, very special.
Yeah.
But it was, I definitely felt very lucky to be in the position that I was in, to have gone to school in New York, to have had an agent throughout college. I was definitely somebody who had opportunities and was in the right place at the right time,
I mean, and what does it feel like when you like hear that you're going to be a swing on Broadway in your first Broadway show? Because I was telling someone else the other week that like I feel like getting cast as a swing, it means there's a certain level of trust there.
Yeah. I don't, it was definitely different for Bridges. If I had gotten cast as a swing in Book of Mormon, I probably would have pooped my pants because you have to learn so many dance tracks. You have to know so many tracks. And for me, I had to know 4 tracks, I think 4 ensemble tracks, and then Michael, who was played by Derek Klena. Michael? His name is Michael.
Yeah, Michael. It's
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's early. And so I had no, I didn't go to a dance call, so I had assumed that there wasn't too much dance in the show. But it was scary. I had taken it very seriously. I did note cards with each character and their blocking and their lines and their movement and everything, and it wasn't too much. It really wasn't too much. The show was primarily Kelly and Steve, and so I think I knew right off the bat that I was going to be able to handle this amount of work, especially while doing school. But it was definitely a nice experience to train to learn several things and to have to go on at a moment's notice. And I only ended up going on twice because the show only ran for 100 performances, and I went on for one of the ensemble characters twice. And that going out there, with everybody under the lights, with the audience, it feels so different than any sort of rehearsal we would have had. And so it's very scary to go out there and not have done it with everybody who is doing it on stage. It's a terrifying feeling. And every time a swing is on, I feel that for them, especially if they're doing a dance track, because it is harder to have to know all these people's dance steps. If somebody turns this way and the other person turns that way, you have to know that. It's terrifying.
Walking, the dancing, like you have to know like you're not going to crash into someone else dancing at the same time.
Yeah. My first move when I went on in Bridges was pushing on a giant staircase. and I had to circle it around Kelly. And the one thing they said to me right before I went on, they were like, "Hey, don't mess up and don't hit Kelly with the staircase." I was like, "Okay, I'll try." Ah,
All right.
I was
Good.
like
Thanks. No
21,
pressure.
I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, no,
Cool.
I
Good
wasn't 20.
pep
I was
talk.
22, 20. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, but it was great. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Do you remember like the day you made your Broadway debut? What was it like?
I think it was a 2-show day actually. And
Ooh.
that one of the ensemble guys had felt like he had laryngitis. Yeah, it was a Saturday. And so after the show, I had heard throughout the show, Luke's not really feeling that great. Um, and then they were like, y- y- "You're on for for the second show, just so you know." And I was like, "Okay, so so I don't know what I'm doing," and I just, everything left my mind at that moment. First
Yeah.
thing I did was call my mom because I knew if she wanted to get down here, I'm from upstate. So if she wanted to get down here, and I knew she would, because my mom is the most supportive person in the entire world, and my dad is right there with her. They jumped in the car immediately. My mom had voice students. She canceled them all. She jumped in the car, and they made it 2 minutes after curtain. Um, but the guy that I was covering was, because he had just lost his voice. Actually, not just because he had lost his voice, because he's very, very, very sweet, lovely guy. Stuck around and walked me through the confusing blocking that I would have had in the show, which I thought was very sweet and something he did not have to do, especially being sick. And I will never forget that. And then going on, I don't remember a single thing. I don't remember it at all. It is gone. The next day, I woke up to a text, "You're on again." And I was like, "Okay, great. Here we go. Let's do it." This one I feel good about. And that one I do remember a little bit more. And it was a little bit more fun. I wasn't just like a deer in the headlights and everyone pushing me around on stage. But it's humbling because, I had done a lot of shows in college. I did a lot of shows in high school, and everything was just kind of like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm an actor. I get it. And you get out there in an ensemble track on Broadway, and it is hard. It's scary. This is what you've worked for, and then all of a sudden you need people to push you around. And I think everybody gets that, and it's just such a great community of people that know how to help everybody else out. It was great.
It's like a team of people, like from
Oh,
the cast,
it's
the crew.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, and the cast
Yeah.
of that, like you were part of the original Broadway cast of that show. What was it like
Yeah.
off the bat to like get that experience as well?
Oh, super cool. It was super cool. Knowing that my name was going to be on the poster, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." um, it was really neat to watch things change, watch things get cut, watch things get added in. I was at Every Day of Tech watching things that "Hey Kelly, will you sing this note at the end of the song instead? Let's try that tonight." And it would go into the preview. There'd be a new page of dialogue that went into the preview, and the next day it wasn't there anymore. So it's just really neat to see. You have, I don't know how many, like 30 shows, probably 40 shows of previews that you just um, have so many liberties with, especially when with the writers working on it. With a revival, it's a little different, but all the writers, Marcia Norman, the book writer, Jason Robert Brown, they're right there. And they can be like, "Hey, we're going to change this. We're going to do this. We're going to add another measure here. We're going to try it. And then if the audience, like, if it worked well with the audience, we'll try it again. If it didn't work well, we won't do it again." Um, and things like that I hadn't even thought about, because when you're doing shows in high school and college, you don't get to work on new pieces. And if you do, it's not written by Jason Robert Brown and Marcia Norman, which
Right.
Marcia Norman was already one of my favorite people because she wrote Secret Garden, and that's my favorite musical of all time. And
And you were in
so
that, I saw.
I was, yeah,
A
that was,
section of that.
yeah, that was the dream. That was the dream.
Oh my
But
gosh, I
it's
love
very,
that.
very cool to work on new pieces. And actually with Secret Garden, just to kind of segue into that, that wasn't a new piece, but the way we did it, Marcia Norman and Lucy Simon, the composer, were there. and we added in a song that was in the original production, and we did it in rehearsal. And I was like, this is so amazing that this is my favorite show. And I'm sitting here singing a song that, John Cameron Mitchell sang in whatever studio, they rehearsed in for Broadway. And then, that ended up getting cut, and now it's in this one. And then it ended up getting cut from ours too. But just how cool to know that it's like reading your favorite book and then being like, oh, there's a sequel. It's like, now I get to know more. It's hearing more songs from Secret Garden. It's a dream.
I mean, and working with the people who are involved in the show and
Oh
like
yeah,
your favorite show, it's like, what is happening?
I know. It was, oh man, I know. I've been so lucky so many times.
I watched a video of you in Secret Garden last night that's on YouTube, and oh my god, you were perfect for that role, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
I wish it's one of my favorite shows too. So
Oh, it's
it's
so lovely.
a stunning show, and I love the music so much.
Oh my gosh. Delaney had a self-tape for a production of it coming up yesterday, and I helped her film it. And she's saying, how could I ever know? And I do cry at Delaney's voice often, but I was a mess. It's just so good. It's so good. It's hard to watch or listen to it and not lose it,
Like, can't hold back the tears. You're like, okay, let me figure out if I can get to all these performances.
I know. Oh, it's crazy. But that's, also because when I did it, I was Dickon. So I'm like the one character that's not miserable in the show, which is my favorite role to play. I'm a little bit like that in Tina, I guess, where I'm just like, hey, everybody.
For sure.
This woman's sad, scary life. I'll come in and just say hello.
Like the kind of like relief from the tears for the audience of the show.
And it's definitely my favorite kind of role to play.
Yes. I mean, you were so good at that in Tina when I saw it. So,
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. So what next you were in Book of Mormon, but I want to talk about you had a little bit of time off between Bridges and Book of Mormon. What do you do between that time off as an actor? I mean, obviously there's auditions, there's a bunch of auditions, but like while waiting, like what are you doing?
Yeah. So that was interesting for me because we closed Bridges and then 3 days later I graduated. So I had stuff on the horizon. I was like, I got to finish school. And I had just switched agencies. And so they were also kind of getting to know me and sending me out for things to be like, hey, let's see what we got here. Let's see if, this is a right fit for you. And I did audition for a lot of things over that time. I had gone in for Mormon a bunch during that. And so I knew that, I was either going to go in for that again, or I was just going to get a call eventually about it. But I had done a production of Lord of the Flies at Denver Center in August of that year. We closed Bridges in May, and then I had that a little bit of the summer to hang out, and then I did Lord of the Flies at Denver Center, which was such a great experience. We did it in the round on sand, and it was just the coolest thing.
I love
such a great group. Oh yeah, it's so great. And then I think like the week or 2 weeks after I got back, I didn't go in for Mormon again. I just got a call from my agent saying, hey, I need you to call me right now. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. And actually there's more to this story. Oh gosh. Okay, so I had done a reading of this show called The Underclassmen, which was off Broadway on 42nd Street. And they called me and said, hey, one of the guys is he's filming a movie and he's going to be out one night. Would you come in and fill in for him in the part that you did in the reading? And I was like, oh yeah, great. So I went and watched the show a couple times. And then that Monday night I was going to go on for his role. And I got a call from my agent that morning and she said, hey, you are going to be in the Book of Mormon on Broadway and you start rehearsal today. And I was like, okay. So I had to run to my costume fitting right after I got off the phone. I went straight to rehearsal and sang through the show with the music director. I had to cancel my put in to Underclassmen. And then I just went to the show. We walked through a couple of scenes right at half hour, and then I did the show that night.
Oh my goodness.
And I had never done the show
Crazy
before
day.
except for a reading. And then after that, I was like, I need to go home and go to sleep. And then the next day I started rehearsing for Mormon, like officially, all the dance and all the scenes and stuff. And then the following Friday, I was put into the show.
Oh,
And it was crazy.
that happened
It was
quick.
quite an experience, the likes of which I haven't had anything like that happen to me in since. Thank God, because it was very stressful, but it was also so fun. And looking back on that, it was just like I didn't have time to stress about anything because I
True.
had to just keep moving.
Go with
That
it.
day was such a blur.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I ended up doing Mormon for about a year and a half, and then I left to do Secret Garden, and then when that didn't end up coming here, I went back into Mormon in a different track.
Okay.
So I ended up doing Mormon for about 3 years.
So they were like, we need you back here.
No. I quite literally begged. I was like, hey, if any track opens, and one of my buddies is like, I'm leaving the show. And so I emailed the company manager. I was like, if I could get into his track, please let me audition for it. And they did. And it was, it was great.
Were you a fan of the show before, like while you were auditioning and like?
I had never seen it. I wanted to wait to see it to listen to the album. So I didn't know it at all. So when I went into my music rehearsal, we started, I think, with Hello, which is, obviously I had heard pieces of Hello. And then he was like, great, let's take a look at Spooky Mormon Hell Dream. And we were talking through it, and I was, I'm singing these lyrics, and then I was like, hold on, can we stop for a sec? What is this?
Yeah.
And he was like, have you not seen the show? I was like, no. And he's like, oh, you have no idea what's going on. And I didn't see the show until the following night. And then afterwards I saw it. I watched every single night, until I had to go on stage. And I remember the first thing I saw the show, and I just remember thinking, have you seen the show?
I've seen the show, and I was in the front row going the whole time.
Yep. So that was me in the back of the theater. But in Turn It Off, when they clap and the lights go down, and then they clap again and the lights come up and they're all in pink vests. I remember watching that and going, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to be the one guy that can't do that. I'm going to mess that up every single night, and I definitely did. I messed it up a couple times, but
happens.
It's just, when you watch the show, it's so much magic, and then you find out how to do it, and it's like, oh wow, these people are tricking the audience left and right. This stuff is not as hard as it looks, but it looks so good from the audience. That show especially, it is crystal clear, clean.
They have it down.
They do. They definitely did it right.
How, as a part of that show, do you keep yourself from cracking up at any given moment of the show? Because I mean, there's humor in it. It's dark humor, but there's humor in it. So
yeah, no, we cracked up the whole show. I constantly was laughing on stage, constantly. It was also just as much fun as it is for the audience. It is so much more fun for the people on stage. That show is so fun. I've never had more fun in my life. And the group was so great and so funny and so sweet that anything that happened on stage, whether it be in the script or something that we like joked about or some funny laugh we heard in the audience, we would die laughing. And it didn't really matter because the whole time we're just like this, so we could laugh and it's fine. But yeah, no, that show, I definitely broke more than enough in that show. Yeah,
I mean,
definitely some bad breaks on stage.
But the audience is laughing with you. Either they're laughing with you or they're like, what is the show? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Because
and sometimes funny things happened. A Cunningham would do something that made everybody laugh on stage, and that just made the audience laugh harder. It's my favorite thing.
It's like with a show that has that much humor, there's room to improv and there's room to like add things and to make performances really different every night.
Totally. That show is so well written that you can't really do it wrong. Obviously you can do it great, and the cast, like right now, I know my friend Cody Strand is Cunningham. He's like one of the funniest people I've ever seen in my life. And Kyle Seelig, one of my other best buds, he's playing Price right now for 2 weeks. And I got to do the show with both of them. When I joined the show, Ben Platt was Cunningham, and Nick Rouleau was Price.
Okay.
And it was just funny. Like, I had never seen Ben Platt, and now you can't not see him. He's every single place ever.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely gotten out there. Like,
oh yeah,
really well. Like, everyone, even if you're not a Broadway fan, I feel like knows you.
Oh yeah.
Point.
You at least know the name for sure.
Yeah. And I saw Nick and Hello Dolly on the tour.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure he was spectacular.
Oh my God. It's so good. It was my first time seeing that show. Yeah. So.
Oh, it's great.
Was there any particular, before I get into Tina, was there any particular funny reaction from an audience member during Book of Mormon that like will always stick out to you?
Oh man, I don't know if I remember any specific ones, but every single night there was at least one. And there are a couple of us in the show that we laugh harder at people laughing than anything else. And so I just always knew who to look at. You know, we'd be doing something, we'd hear a laugh, and I would just look right at them, and they'd already be looking at me. And then the whole show, the whole rest of the scene, we'd be crying. And there is one that I remember during All American Prophet. We all go upstage, and our backs are to the audience, and our arms are up like this. And one of the guys sings, "I have maggots in my scrotum," which is a hilarious line, and it comes out of nowhere. And some guy in the audience goes, "Ah!" And he was the only one laughing, like way louder than everybody else. And one of my buddies just knew that I was about to break, and he goes, "Here we go." And I just, my arms just go, I was laughing so hard. It's my favorite. I love hearing people laugh. It is so funny to me.
I mean, I think it's the best when there's like that one person who starts laughing and it's silent, and then the person like keeps laughing louder, and it's like, okay, this person has no shame. It's great.
But then everybody else starts laughing because it's so much funnier than like what they're laughing at, you know?
Right.
Oh, right. I love it.
It's kind of like, it's like a cheerful version of a cell phone awkwardly going off.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I never mind the laughs. The cell phones, you could probably turn them off before the show.
I mean, always happens at the choir.
And they always go off at the worst times.
Always.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Tina, there's a couple pretty good spots. I mean, pretty bad spots that cell phones continually go off during. And I'm always like, of course, it's right now.
I'm like,
but,
no! Not during the silent parts.
I know, it's always during the silent parts.
Oh, or like the emotional scenes.
Oh yeah. Anything that is supposed to make the audience go like on the edge of their seat, it just pulls them right out of it.
It's like a ringtone, full on ringtone. Yes, yeah. Exactly. So I want to get into Tina. What was your audition like for Tina? And how much did you know about Tina Turner's story before going into audition, like her whole story?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can honestly say I did not know much about Tina Turner before going in for it. And I had this weird, I'm not really I don't see myself as a rock musical performer. I am very much like in productions of She Loves Me, I don't see myself. And so every time I get one of these things, I'm always like, how did I do that? I always just think I'm not going to get that. I should probably not even go in for it. And I was close to not going in for Tina because I remember thinking, oh, maybe it's not really right for me. And I read the script and I was like, okay, yeah, this character does seem a little bit right up my alley. He's supposed to look like a baby, and he's not, I mean, he's witty, but it's mainly just like he comes in with like, hey, and here's this, and everyone's like, oh, you. Yeah, so off the bat, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get this, but hey, I'll go in for it. I had to learn how to do an Australian accent, which Delaney
Yes.
has a friend from Australia, and I asked him straight up. I was like, hey, would you record these sides for me? You don't have to act in them. Just like record you saying the lines, and then actually I told him I was like, prefer you didn't like give me like any specific ideas for choices I should make. Just like say the words. And he did it. It was so lovely. It was, he's like, of course I'll do that. And it helped immensely because I'm a pretty good mimic, so I'm able to, if I hear it, I'm able to do it again. And I had to sing a pop song. So, excuse me, I went in and it was my first audition was for, I think it was for the music director and the director. I didn't have to just go in for the casting, which was very nice. And I did the sides. I sang first, and then I did the sides. And um, the director was very, very sweet. Phillida Lloyd. She called me over at the end, and she was like, "You have an amazing Australian accent." And I was like, "Oh my god, thank you." I learned it from an Australian. Um, and we kind of just talked for a while, which I hadn't experienced in many auditions. Usually you're like, all right, great, thanks for finishing that song, thanks for doing all those sides, I'll see you later. um, I just stood at the piano and we had a probably 5 to 10 minute conversation of just about life. She asked me what I wanted to be doing in 5 years, what I wanted to be doing in 10 years, and then I left. And I was like, wow, that was it. And I thought I did not get it because she asked me what I wanted to be doing in 10 years. And I was like, I want to be far away from New York City, not doing this, and, living on a lake, and, just, I guess trying not to come across as desperate, but also trying to, just think like, what do I actually want? I want a family. I want kids. I want, not the stress of this auditioning life. Of course, I always want to be doing theater. So I left being like, I should have just said I wanted to be doing theater. Oh gosh, I'm never gonna get the part. Uh, and the next thing I knew, I got the job. That was it. I didn't have to go in again. It's like the easiest audition process I've ever done. I don't know how it happened. I think I got lucky, or they forgot to call me in again. Um, I've never booked something off of one audition before. At least not a Broadway job. Um, it always feels so wrong when that happens. I when I was doing Lord of the Flies in Denver, I got a self tape to do a concert of Parade at Lincoln Center, and I sang Old Red Hills of Home, put it on tape, and maybe 2 days later, I got the offer from my agent, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to do anything else? And he's like, nope, that's it, you got it. I was like, really? But I only sang one time. And so then, going in for Tina was like, this happens too much. I need to have more auditions, Um, but yeah, I guess it's another experience of just being very lucky that I only had to do it one time.
I
It was one less time for me to go in and mess up.
I mean, it feels like I feel like from how you're describing auditions, like you make yourself memorable to the people at the audition, which is really
Well,
good.
I hope that's true. You, you know, I think one of the most important things about auditioning is just, and I'm very bad at this until I get in the room. Going into audition, I'm like, I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna be terrible. This is all gonna be bad. I'm gonna mess up all the words. I'm gonna mess up all the notes. And as soon as I get in the room, it's kind of impossible to not drop it. You just have to go in and be yourself. And they know as soon as you walk in the door whether or not they're going to cast you, or whether or not they want to consider casting you. And so at that point, you have to let it go because no matter what you sing, no matter how you perform, there's always the idea that they either already want you or don't. And so there's no point in just being nervous the whole time. You just have to go in there and show them who you are as a person. And I learned afterwards, Phillida, the director of Tina, said, I only cast people that I want to go on vacation with, and I think that's so sweet. It's these people she wants in her company for a long time and she wants to enjoy rehearsing with. And of course talent matters, of course, and you know that by watching Tina. It was
Oh my
absolutely
god.
jam-packed with talent. um but if somebody's super talented and a jerk, or no fun, or takes their job way too seriously, or is extremely desperate, you don't want to really work with them. It's about being comfortable as who you are. I mean, that's our entire job, is selling who we are. So if you're not your most honest, regular old version of yourself, it's hard to want that person. And it's even saying it out loud is a nice reminder, because there's so many times you go into an audition and you think, I'm not going to be able to do this, or I'm not good enough for this. And of course you are. Anybody, they're not looking for you to be the next, Gavin Creel, or the next Jeremy Jordan, or
Yeah.
the next, I don't know, but the next Adrian Warren. They want you to be
You.
like, they want me to be Charlie Franklin.
Yeah.
So
They want to see they want to see you be unique and be yourself, and not be another performer who already exists.
Yeah, otherwise they just hire the other performer.
Yeah. They'd be like, "Hey, so we want
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want you and not Charlie. And then they're like, "Oh, okay."
They wouldn't hold auditions.
I'll take it.
If they wanted
exactly.
if they wanted someone if they wanted one of those people. So,
Yeah.
what was the most fascinating thing you learned during the rehearsal process for Tina while reading the script about Tina Turner's life?
Oh gosh, there's so much. I mean, what I think is extremely fascinating, which I love this part of the story. Obviously, I don't love the fact that she had such a miserable life leading up to it, but I love that she was so well known and then completely disappeared, and she was working in Vegas. She was doing like, which, there's nothing wrong with working in Vegas, but when you're at her status, it's why are you not recording new material? Why are you not doing this thing? And that helps me every single night as my character, which comes in and says, "Hey, you're too good for this. What are you doing? How did you fall off?" It is absolutely fascinating to me that she had one very successful career, a gap, and then an even more successful career. I think that is so. I would have never known that about Tina Turner. You think, okay, yeah, she was famous from being with Ike, and then now she's still famous today. No, she got completely brought down by Ike. He stole everything from her, ruined her life, and then she still managed to get out of that ditch and come back even stronger. I think that it's beautiful, and it's so impressive, and she's definitely one of the strongest people that I don't personally know her. I've met her, but she's definitely one of the strongest people I know of.
I mean, I was not prepared when I went to see, like, no one told me her life story. So I didn't know, especially Act 1, how heartbreaking it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, she went through it.
Yeah. And she
was
has a hard time with that. Obviously, I don't think she had wanted a musical about her life. I don't think she had wanted a movie about her life. She doesn't want to see these things again, but she came to opening night and she sat through the show. And then she got up on stage after and she said, watching that was like turning poison into medicine, which I think is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she sat through watching the hard times and watching her success story.
And watching the payoff. Yeah.
Yeah, watching the payoff, watching everything that happens, watching the good things, like the bad things and the good things.
Yeah. And how strong she had to be to do that.
Oh my God.
Seeing somebody else in her shoes is probably like, I hope that she was able to see, like, how impressive what she did was.
Oh my gosh. I hope she was like sitting in the audience like, wow, I'm a rock star.
I am cool.
Yeah, I'm a rock star. Good for me. Good for me.
Good for me.
How do you go about making a factual character, like an actual character who exists in real life, your own?
Yeah, this is a really great question. So Roger Davies is a manager that really wants nothing to do with being in the limelight. He is so behind Tina. There's no videos of him. There's no recordings of him. I had done so much research. There's conversations about him in her books, which is nice, and I definitely, took as much as I could from that. But during the rehearsal process, the book writer did an interview with him, and we got to at any point, go and listen to it, which was very helpful for A, the accent, and B,
Yeah.
getting a feel of his, just who he is. And then of course we open the show, we're doing the show. I think he might have seen the show. I never met him, but during the pandemic, they released a documentary about Tina on HBO. And of course, he is interviewed left and right. Videos, I get to see it, what he's like. And I'm like, man, if I could have had this months ago, this would have been great. But I will say, I'm not Roger Davies. I'm some guy up there pretending to be Roger Davies. And as an actor, no matter what you're doing, there is a part of you in it. So I'm not up there to be the perfect Roger Davies. I'm up there to show what Roger Davies was and put my own spin on it. Adrian is an incredible Tina Turner, but she's Adrian,
Yeah.
So she's showing Tina's story through the vehicle of Adrian Warren. And so everything she does is not identical to what Tina did. All the notes she's saying aren't exact. She's doing Adrian Warren's spin on it, which I think is important to remember when you're doing something. It's a little different, I think, in a movie than on stage. But with every character, no matter whether or not they're real, you are combining you and them.
Yes.
Otherwise, they'll just cast the person who looks the most like them,
It's live theater, and like people come multiple times to these shows to see like different people portray these roles and how different people
Yeah, oh
portray
yeah.
these roles. So
All the Tinas are so different, and yet they're all Tina. They're all doing an absolutely amazing job as Tina.
I was gonna say, speaking of that, how does who is playing Tina opposite of you that night affect how you play the character of Roger?
Yeah, I there are obviously things, you want to keep the story going the same way, but every time you're given a line, your reaction to that line is going to be altered based on the way that they say it. So, if somebody's yelling at me, I'm heightened.
Yeah.
As Roger, and he's going to yell back a little bit, or he's going to be like, all right, okay, relax, don't yell so much, and if somebody says that same line, the following performance, a different Tina says it like this, then I'm going to be like this too, whether or not I'm frustrated or whether or not I'm also trying to calm her down. So of course it's totally different every time. And I do a lot of the same things, on stage, because it works. You find out what works and it flows. But I really love to just play. So it's fun to take these lines and to put different twists on them, as long as it makes sense, as long as it flows naturally out, and it doesn't hurt the story. It's fun to do it differently every night, especially if you're doing in the run for the long haul. You're doing the show 8 times a week, and if the show runs for 3, 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows? The only way to stay sane is by doing it differently. If you do the same thing every single night, you're going to go insane. So yeah, it is very different with each Tina, and every time we get someone new on for Tina, I've done the show with 5 different Tinas at this point.
Heard so many good things about all of them, by the way.
Oh, they're all spectacular. Anybody who could do that role, even if they're not as good as they are, and they're all 5 of them have been perfect. Even if they weren't, if they were doing the role of Tina, they're spectacular.
Yeah.
Because it's that hard. It's the hardest role. I think it's got to be the hardest role that's been on Broadway. I can't think of a harder one. But yeah, it's only, it's fun to do it differently. But of course, no matter what you're getting from them, it will create how you get back.
Yes.
Because the story ultimately is about them too. It's not about stealing the spotlight, as Roger Davies wouldn't do. But whatever supports their story is how you got to say the lines,
I mean, and it must be amazing to like kind of be like the person, like you kind of feel the audience go, oh my gosh, she's like, she doesn't have to deal with Ike at this point as much anymore, and like kind of like feel the like relief, the sighs of relief
definitely
from the audience.
Definitely. Act 2 feels so much nicer because I'm in Act One. I'm doing a bunch of random little bits in Act One, but it is a lot heavier and darker. And then Act Two comes along, and it's about her walk back up. And it's also, I have to say, playing Roger Davies isn't that hard, because what you're doing is basically trying to support Tina. And yes, you have the actual story, and you're supporting regular Tina, real Tina Turner. But I don't have to act when I'm talking about how I think Adrian or Nkeki or Kayla or Leandra or Ari are spectacular. It's not hard to say believably, like, this person deserves everything they're getting. This person deserves more than what they're getting, because they're really, really spectacular. And that just makes my job so much easier,
Oh my gosh, yes. I'd be in awe of them every single night. Like,
We all are.
wow. And I mean, and the little one who played, like, the little one.
Sky. Yeah.
So, oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Oh yeah. Sky was in the Aretha Franklin movie as young
Yeah.
Aretha.
I saw that.
She's a star in the making.
She's also from the Dallas area. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think, or Houston? No, she's from Dallas.
yeah,
I don't know.
her
She's from
dad was
Texas.
outside as I was leaving the show, and wearing like a cowboy hat.
Oh yeah.
Dallas Cowboys hat.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, you're from Dallas." And then like Sky came over, and I was like, "Oh, you all are from Dallas."
Yep.
Yeah.
She's a sweetheart too.
Oh my goodness, she's so good. That voice, I can't believe it comes out of her. Wow.
I know, I could do an entire interview on how good I think Sky is.
Do you have a favorite Tina Turner song?
Which song do I love the most? Let's see.
It probably changes based on like the day.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's definitely different versions of songs that I like depending on who's singing them. I think the song that makes me feel the most every night is River Deep, because we are in a line standing behind her singing just the ahs, and every time, no matter who it is, every time they're singing that song, I get goosebumps. It's so great, and they nail it, and it's such a great song. It is so good. Yeah, I think I'd have to go with that one.
I mean, like the whole like end performance too. The
So
audience
good.
got so hyped.
Oh, and we're hyped backstage. Most of the time we're all doing the dance backstage with all the girls. We're just like back there doing the choreography and just.
So was the woman next to me at the show.
Oh yeah, for sure. Actually,
Yeah.
Daniel Watts, who played Ike, his last show, I think about a month ago, he went on and did the mega mix on stage with the girls, and he did it so well.
Oh my goodness. He made me really hate the character.
Oh yeah,
Oh my
he's an
goodness.
amazing actor.
He did his job.
He was amazing. Yeah.
I was like, oh, don't like your character.
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
No.
In fact, we have to clap for Ike at bows because sometimes he gets booed. So we have to say, no, yay, this person is a great actor.
Yes. Yeah. At the end, you have to appreciate his acting.
And Daniel and now Nick, who's playing the role, they're the two nicest people in the world. And so it's just, of course they play bad so well,
Yeah, yes. Nicest people do. How would you convince theater fans to come see Tina on Broadway, or when the tour starts, the national tour?
Oh gosh, I mean, it really should be as simple as like showing them any sort of video from the show. I mean, it's so spectacular. What Tina went through, but also what these people are doing on stage. What any girl playing Tina is doing on stage is worth seeing live. It is crazy. That said, I do know that some people feel a certain way about jukebox musicals. as I have in the past, every single night, I wish I could go out in the audience and watch this show every night. And I'm still waiting for a time when I'm like, oh no, I sprained my ankle. I have to not do the show for a while, and then I have to, go sit and watch it, because it really is so good. And if you want to see people at the top of their game, at the top of what people should be able to do in this career, you want to see Tina.
Yes. I mean, if you're a Tina Turner fan, if you're a fan of any of the songs, I feel like.
Yeah, but if you're not a Tina Turner fan, go see the show and you will be.
Yes, exactly.
And
you'll be a fan of all the cast. So.
I hope so.
Yes. I mean, the whole cast as a whole is just magic.
They're also very special off stage as well, which is nice.
I believe it. So, who inspires you in the theater world?
My biggest inspiration is always going to be my mom. She's the one who has been, she kind of put her career on hold to have kids, and to anything that we do, she is the first person there to support us. Like I said, she ran to see Bridges, cancel all our students to come. In the theater world, my biggest inspiration growing up was probably Gavin Creel. I thought he was just spectacular, and how cool that, a week after, actually the first night I saw Book of Mormon, and I told my friends that I was doing it. They were like, oh, and you get to do the show with Gavin. And I was like, Gavin who? And they were like, Creel. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, he's joining the show in a couple weeks. And I was so excited, because I've been looking up to this guy. He's not that much older than me, but he had just completely blown up, and he's so talented. And then come to find out, he's also one of the sweetest people alive, and that just makes him even better, and
Yeah.
I love that. I love when you look up to somebody, and then you meet them, and then you look up to them even more. That's how I hope that most heroes are, especially in this business, because there's so many people that, well, there's not so many people, thankfully, but there's enough people that, you meet them and you go like, oh man, I wish they were a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
And so it is nice to meet somebody. And Kelly is the same way. Kelly O'Hara, she is one of the most down to earth, sweet people. And to be that talented and that nice is almost unfair. But of course, that's how you get that far. You're that talented, and on top of it, you're the nicest person to work with,
Yeah, people have to like
So,
work
yeah.
to a certain degree. You can't be miserable to work with.
Yeah. And then now I think in addition to those two, I'll have to add Adrienne Warren in the mix. She's unbelievably inspiring, and one of the nicest people ever.
She's just, oh my goodness, she's so good.
Beyond.
I was very glad I saw her performance.
I'm very glad you did.
Oh my goodness. But I want to go back and just see every other Tina.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish there was just a way that like everybody could see everybody.
Yeah.
It's not fair,
Right.
They're all so good.
Because I mean, I see like people talk about them on Twitter, like the theater community talk about everyone on Twitter, like every Tina on Twitter, and I'm like, oh my goodness, now I want to see her.
Yep.
What is your dream show to be a part of, your dream role?
It was Secret Garden. So every time I get this question now, I'm like, man, I wish obviously I wish I could do it on Broadway. That would be the coolest. But I think now I would have to say it's lesser known, but I really love Floyd Collins.
Ooh.
It's an Adam Guettel musical. And I would love to play Floyd Collins in Floyd Collins someday. It's one of my favorite scores.
Ooh.
And then I guess if I had to pick a more well-known one, I don't know. I'd love to play Emmett in Legally Blonde.
Yes.
I love that show.
Yes, I don't think people would have a problem with that coming back to Broadway either. So
Oh man, it shouldn't have left Broadway when it did.
yeah,
So it's got to come back soon.
have you been in a production of Godspell? Because I saw a video of you singing a Godspell song on YouTube.
No, I haven't. I love that tune, and I loved that revival. And yeah, that I saw that show. I was like, oh, I'm gonna put that song in my book.
And I was like, I feel like you'd be good at that too.
Oh, thank you. I would love to do that.
And that show was the first show I actually saw on Broadway. So it's
Oh wow. Oh, that's such a great first. Yeah,
one.
that was
So good.
an amazing show.
Yes.
That cast was so good too.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness. It was, I was mind blown. I was like, okay, I really like Broadway in the city, and like
Yeah.
theater is perfect.
Another show in the round too.
Yes. And that made it very special.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work on self-confidence in this industry?
What a great question and a hard question. I think one of my biggest things that helps me, and also my biggest downfall, is I'm really good at helping other people with their self-confidence. And so I think one of my best things is when I sit down and I'm able to take a little bit of my own advice and go, you know what, me saying that's not that big a deal, or you are good, maybe you're just not right for that. It helps. It does help to, what you want to say to other people, it does apply to yourself. But I think the biggest thing is, what I said earlier, is just you got to let it go. You got to know that you are good. There is stuff out there for you, and if it's not this, it's coming.
Yes. I mean, I feel like it is that simple. Like
it is that simple, and it's that difficult. It's a lot easier said than done.
It's about timing.
But
too.
Like we said too, it's about time. It's about being in the right place at the right time. It's about being prepared when that happens, and it's about trusting that you have this unique package that will, of course, be wanted. Everybody's different.
Yep.
And nobody wants the same thing again. And so eventually they'll be like, oh, we haven't seen you,
Yes. You'll be the missing part of the puzzle that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And I always miss puzzle pieces. So I'm definitely one of those missing pieces.
Yes. One of the magic pieces that finishes the puzzle.
Man, I'm sure my dog ate it, but
oh my goodness, my dog would probably. I have to watch her closely.
Oh, if we drop a piece of a puzzle on the ground, we have to get it before he does. He gets enough of them.
It's gone before you know it.
They either disappear or we find them in a couple pieces.
Oh, good. So before I get to my last question, where can people follow you on social media to keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, my Instagram is @itscharliefranklin. My Twitter is @itscharliefrank, because It's Charlie Franklin was too long for Twitter. And I think that's pretty much all I have. I have a TikTok, but I don't really go on it all that much. I kind of just go on to scroll every now and then. So I mean, Instagram is really probably the best way. That's the one I tend to go on the most. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll put
until the next big thing comes out.
Yes, exactly.
What'd you say?
I'll put everything in the lower thirds.
Great. Love it.
Exactly, the next big thing. You never know when it's going to come.
See.
So my last question is, do you have anything that you'd like to promote, whether it's Broadway related, theater related, or not?
You mean like an upcoming project, or or is it what, like
or if you just want to promote Tina again?
That's pretty much all I have at this point. We did a concert on Monday, but it's already over, so I can't promote it.
Oh.
But yeah, I guess That's pretty, yeah. The things on my calendar right now are Tina, which is running right now at the Lunt Fontaine on 46th, and my wedding, which is September 19th of this year.
Oh,
Unfortunately, that is a closed event and is not open to the public.
so exciting.
Um, yeah, yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for both of those things, though. So, yeah, why don't we promote Tina?
Yes, everyone go see Tina. It's
Come see
fantastic.
Tina.
It's fantastic. You won't regret it.
I'm glad that you saw it and that you think so.
Yes, I mean, I was like calling my parents and I'm like, did you know this and this and this happened in Tina's life? They were like, yeah,
Yeah.
didn't you? I was like, no, you didn't tell me. I was bawling.
Well, that's the amazing thing too, is that, I would say, not most, a big chunk of our audiences are older people who are obsessed with Tina Turner and who have, loved following this journey. And then the other half is these younger this younger generation that doesn't know this story and is learning this story and goes out and tells her friends, this is A, these are amazing performances, and B, this story is insane. You have to see this show. And that's what I think makes it a worthwhile jukebox musical, is the story is really so strong and the music is so good. And then on top of that, you have these performances that you gosh, you just won't see anywhere else. They're so hard. It's so hard to play Tina Turner.
Oh
I'm
my
in
goodness.
shock every night.
Times a week. Like, what? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this. I really enjoyed
Yeah,
talking
thank
to you about
you.
your theater career.
It's been great.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!